Am I the hole for outshining the bride? So I, 27F, am a black African woman. I'm living and working in Germany for a fixed period on secondment. While here, I became quite friendly with a colleague, 60F, and she invited me to her daughter's wedding. I was excited as I've never been to a white wedding. I asked if there was a dress code or a color scheme to adhere to since it wasn't specified on the invite. I was told the code is dress to impress. Bet. Day of the wedding, I understand the assignment. I wear my traditional wear, which is really beautiful and obviously not German. The garment is green, so no problem there. Or so I thought. I get a lot of questions and compliments at the wedding, which I genuinely downplay because it's not my day. My colleague seems colder than usual, but I pay it no mind since she's mother of bride and could be preoccupied. The bride is downright rude to me, but again I give her grace. I congratulate her and thank her for including me, and I get a tight in response. I keep to the edges of the room as the music isn't really my vibe, and I'm just observing how European weddings work. I leave around 8 after 5 hours and go home before the wedding finishes. Monday I walked into whispers in the office. People actually strangely and more reserved than usual. An office friend pulls me aside and fills me in. Bride's mother is fuming. My outfit was too extravagant, OTT and inappropriate. I drew attention from the bride and commandeered the room. I was rude and disrespectful. She's told people all about it apparently. I approach Mob and ask to speak, but she says she has nothing to say to me. I ask her why she has something TK say everyone else about me but not to me, and she calls me an insolent child. I explain to anyone who scolds me that this was my first white people wedding. I specifically asked what to do where and followed the guidelines. Where I'm from, there's no such thing as outshines. The bride weddings are a fashion show and a chance to wear your best and brightest clothes. They told me this isn't Africa, which was racially coded, and people here have manners. I laughed and told that person to go to hell. So she's telling people I lack remorse for my behavior. I'm wondering if I really am the asshole though.
Am I the a-hole for starting my wedding on time? My parents are late for everything. They were late for everything while I grew up, and they refuse to care about being late. They do not care how disrespectful it is to everyone else. My older siblings have adjusted to this by planning all kinds of slack into their schedules. Our parents showed up late to both of their weddings, but that had been accounted for so they were able to participate in the weddings as planned. The same goes for family get-togethers that are hosted by anyone other than my parents. My siblings planned for them to be late. I went the other way. When my parents were late for my high school graduation, I told them that I would never wait for them for any event that I had power over. And I have held to that. When my wife and I hosted our first Thanksgiving after we bought our home, we started eating on time. My parents showed up late after visiting with other family and were surprised to see us all laying around in tryptophan comas. My wife and I got married last weekend and the ceremony went perfectly. Other than my mother not being involved in the candle lighting, my older sister was my backup. My parents showed up 3/4 of the way through the ceremony and ended up sitting at the back of the church. They kept everything in during the receiving line and the formals, but they let me have it afterwards and before the reception. They were very disappointed that they did not get to participate in the ceremony and that they missed so much of it. I was ready for this. I had one of my friends waiting and he took their pictures when they were entering the church and sitting down at the back. He sent me the pictures as a text and as email. I asked my parents to show me their invitations. They did not have it with them, so I pulled out the one I had ready for this. I showed them the time on the invitation. I asked them what time they showed up. They said that they were only 5 minutes late and that I was an asshole for not waiting. I pulled up my text messages and my email. Both provided a timestamp of when they showed up 35 minutes late. They said that if I knew they were going to be late that I should have planned for it like my siblings. I told them that I had not put up with their bullshit since I graduated from high school and why they thought I would start now, almost 15 years later. I told them that my siblings could coddle them all they wanted, but to enjoy their time with me they had better learn to be punctual. They said I was disrespectful and if I did not like their behavior that was entirely my problem. I agreed and said I would be handling all my time with them the exact same way.
Am I the a-hole for wanting to plan my wedding? My 20-F fiance's mom is extremely controlling. She has been taking various pictures of him throughout his life and has almost documented every second of his existence. Up until he was 17, she would choose what clothes he wore and made all decisions for him and refused to let him choose by himself. She told him multiple times as a teen that she would be planning his wedding and that whoever he found would just have to be fine with that. Well, I'm not for a while now. I've been wanting to plan my wedding like any normal bride would. My soon-to-be Mill, immediately after my fiancé proposed, almost started talking to me like I was her child. She told me where I'd be having my wedding and sent me some wedding dress styles I could choose from. I immediately told her no and said that it was my wedding and she didn't have any right to control aspects of it. She was very angry and told me that I wasn't off for not letting her live out her dream. But nevertheless, I continued to plan my wedding. Everything went sideways when I decided I did not want photos being taken during the ceremony by anyone else but the photographer. I would like everyone attending to be mentally and emotionally present and be respectful of everyone's view. To be clear, I don't mean no photos for the whole wedding. I just mean for the ceremony and the first dance. Guests will have permission to take pictures after that, but I want them to keep their cameras down and enjoy the ceremony. I texted her and explained this to her. She was absolutely furious and said that I was insane and that she would not be following my wishes. She's gone no contact for the past few days, despite me trying multiple times to explain. I have a feeling she's never going to let me have the day how I want it. At this point, I'm considering telling her that if she can't accept my wedding for how it is, then she doesn't need to attend. I know that she will want to take a bunch of group photos I don't know we have time for, and may cause unnecessary chaos regardless. Am I an R? Should I have just let her take pictures? I feel like I'm ruining things with her, but she won't let me plan my wedding the way I want it.
Am I the a-hole for wearing a gold dress to a wedding? I put gold in quotation markers because I think it's more bronze or orange, but maybe I'm splitting hairs. Some context. My 30F best friend Dan 30M got married to Lauren 27F yesterday. Me and Dan have been best friends since high school, and despite always being platonic with no romantic interests on either side, his now wife Lauren has always disliked me. In THI, 3 years of dating, I have not been allowed to see Dan alone because she feels that it's suspicious that I want to hang out with him. Honestly, I just missed my friend. Despite me being happily married, she's always kept me at arm's length. I always figured this was because she's from a very conservative family. Dan has spoken to her multiple times, and after she'll back off for a bit before reverting to complaining about him being friends with a girl again. It's not ideal, but she makes Dan happy, so I made my peace with it. That brings us to the wedding. Originally, I was going to be in the groom's party, but Lauren ended up crying, saying, "A wedding is not a place to swap gender roles." Dan was fighting her on this, but I told him I'll just attend as a guest and not to choose this hill to die on. The dress code was warm tone garden party, and we were encouraged to wear earthy warm colors. I picked out a bronze orange dress that I thought fit this perfectly, and the style even matched some examples they gave. In short, I thought I had nailed it. The wedding went great, however. At the reception, Lauren dragged me aside and said, "I cannot believe you would wear gold to my wedding. You're not the first prize, you're just FING trashy." I was so shocked in the moment I just stared at her. She practically screamed at me to leave, and she was drawing attention, so I grabbed my husband, said goodbye to Dan and left. Dan reached out after and told me he was upset I left his wedding so soon. Lauren's mum has texted me saying I ruined the wedding for her daughter and I'm stupid for wearing a gold dress. She's saying it's as bad as wearing white. I was genuinely not aware this was a thing. I want to reach out to Dan to explain, but I don't know if I'm in the wrong here. Am I the a-hole? Update. Wow guys, I genuinely didn't know what to expect posting to strangers on this. But I am so thankful to my husband for suggesting this. I needed a non-biased view on this wearing gold to a wedding issue. And now it's clear that that was never the issue. Many of you asked if the dress I wore stood out, and honestly, I know I'm biased saying this, but I genuinely don't think so. Another girl was wearing the exact same dress, but in a dark red, which we had a laugh about. Slip dresses are a pretty common wedding guest dress where I am, and it was the type of dress that was recommended by the bride. I think many of you were right in saying that it was never about the dress, but how I looked wearing it. I do want to start this update by thanking my husband, who suggested I post here and been having a ball reading your comments since posting, and even posting a photo of us this morning with a caption along the lines of my gold prize of a wife. I am winning in life thanks to you. Turns out Dan found out pretty quickly what actually happened and called me last night. Apparently Lauren's mum had told him I was really drunk and told Lauren her dress wasn't it, so I was requested to leave. Dan had his suspicions that it was bullshit, but it wasn't until his mum calling him that confirmed it. Turns out she was nearby when Lauren pulled me aside and ironically was actually wearing a yellow gold dress and told him a new one about letting Lauren treat me like that. Dan didn't have a solution when he called. I could tell he was emotionally exhausted and pretty defeated. He said he wished I had taken it out on the open bar rather than leaving, but he understood why I left. He thanked me for taking the high road and that it hasn't gone unnoticed. He apologized for what happened. Apparently, this is an ongoing fight between him and Lauren. For all of those who said Lauren just hates me, turns out it's 100% true. Apparently, she has been trying to convince Dan to cut me off because that's what a good husband does. He said he thought she had gotten over it now that they were married. I told him that he needs to focus on his happiness and that I will always be here to support him and that I will take a step back if that's what he needs. They were supposed to leave for their honeymoon yesterday, but when Dan called they were still at home, so who knows. I've blocked Lauren and her mum and forwarded the messages to Dan as recommended. Thanks again everyone for your comments and judgment. Please leave your comments down below for any story we have mentioned today. Are any of these a holes? Thanks for watching.